Hello again, everyone. Tom Abrams on this Friday morning, and I'm joined today by #1 Kindle author, I think for the second time, Steve Konkoly. Steve is one of my oldest friends in the business, and by oldest, I don't mean his age. I just mean how long we've been friends, and thrilled to be able to chat with you today about your newest release, Deep Sleep. Why don't you tell everybody what it's about?
All right. Sure. Well, hey, first, it's a pleasure to talk with you live. It's always I enjoy talking offline, but I actually I enjoy talking more online with you. So I don't know if this feels like work to you, but
No, not at all. No, it's
okay,
always good to talk to a friend.
good. And I thought you said baldest.
No, I said
So,
oldest.
okay, good. I just want to clear that up for everyone. So Deep Sleep. It released January 1st through Amazon First Reads, and it kind of just describe it in a nutshell. I wanted to kind of modernize, re-envision the kind of the Russian sleeper book genre. And I would never have said that before because I kind of want, that was kind of a bit of a secret. And through when you look at the Amazon description of the book, it doesn't mention that. It's just mentions a conspiracy, very deep and pervasive conspiracy. But I think the cat's out of the bag now. Pretty much all the reviews mention it. So, I wanted to kind of re-envision the sleeper kind of genre, and so Deep Sleep is like kind of like a re-envisioning of the Americans, with a cross of Nelson DeMille's Charm School, and I want to throw in like a show like The Unit or something, because there's definitely like a very strong Black Ops type of theme in the book. So yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of a fast-paced conspiracy novel that just keeps expanding and expanding. I think it's a fairly unique look, kind of deep dive into sleeper lore. I mean, that's really, I've always loved the books. The Charm School is one of my favorites, and the whole thought and concept of Russia, whether Russian or any country, any major nation state player, having penetrated the United States, not just yesterday or a year or two ago, but like a long simmering conspiracy that everything's just remained completely undetected for decades. Yeah.
And I think it's especially timely right now. I remember during one of the presidential elections, I guess it was probably 2012, Mitt Romney said at a debate that Russia was one of our greatest threats, and some people laughed at him at the time. But I think what he said then has proven to be somewhat true. I mean, Russia is still one of the nations that we look out for.
Yeah, I agree, and I've never really taken my eye off them. Interestingly, I was at the Naval Academy when the Soviet Union collapsed, and we literally stopped studying Russian military hardware. In our case, it was all ships and stuff like that we had to memorize and be able to identify, that kind of stuff. It was very clear, that was, I entered at the very end of the Cold War, and then it literally just ended. I remember very distinctly, within a week, we were not studying that stuff anymore. It wasn't required. And but I never really took my eye off it, as writing in the genre I write in, I'm reading hundreds of articles just for background or just kind of skimming. I could never really escape the idea and the truth that Russia, it's like I always say, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It's just wrapped in a slightly different package, maybe without the threat of nuclear annihilation. But I think Russia is definitely an alive and well threat to everyone.
You mentioned your time at the Naval Academy, and I think, were you an English literature major?
I was, right.
Okay.
Right.
But in talking to you over the years, you seem to take a very analytical, mathematical approach to the way that you write and that you research. Tell people a little bit about the way that you work and how a story develops, and then the way that you break it down even before you're writing and then as you're writing.
Sure. This process is, it's definitely changed over the years. So I do have a literature degree, English degree from the Naval Academy, but it is also a Bachelor of Science, which is which is a very odd combination. But I mean, I definitely took more engineering, more math, more science classes there than I did English classes. I did have a creative writing class, but quite honestly, it had, I wouldn't even attribute that to anything I'm doing today. So I really start out with I would say like the seed or the idea of a book will come from an article. It will come from something, a basic concept. In the case of deep sleep, so I would say, and oddly enough, none of this appears in the book. I came across a couple articles, or one, and then it led to like 8 more on something called numbers stations. I don't know if viewers are familiar with it, or you are. I had heard about them a long time ago. I think we've all heard about them in some way. They're these like mysterious radio broadcasts that are transmitted on like very long, frequency radio waves. So these are traveling like across the oceans. One of them, it's still active today. Originates out of somewhere in, I think it's Western Russia, and they pop up from here time to time here and there. But they just transmit they transmit numbers. That's why they're called number stations. And there's no rhyme or reason. No one's ever been able to figure out exactly what these things are and what they do. But they transmit on a frequent, like a regular period basis. So the theory is that this is like a broadcast a Russian sleeper or agents abroad could listen to. And if the broadcast changed, if there was a different pattern of numbers, or it just stopped altogether, that would be the signal, for whatever it is. In the Cold War across Europe, that might have been all the secret assassination teams that are embedded in, throughout NATO, strike NATO leadership or something like that. So that's where it all started. The concept, I thought, like, hey, what if a number station came online and was located in the middle of the United States? Well, that kind of led to, so obviously sleepers are going to be evolved. That led to this just idea that kind of morphed away from it moved away from number stations and more to just just this massive conspiracy. So that's kind of how it starts. So going beyond that, I don't want to. If you want to interrupt and break this up, feel free. you asked for it. So then I just start really rough sketching a plot, ideas, and try to pull stuff from there. Eventually, it'll start ending up on a board where I'm creating kind of I thinking of scenes, kind of putting together like, who are the entities and how much time do I want to give them, and how much time am I going to give to each kind of plot point. I don't do like kind of what I think I don't know if a lot of authors do this or not, but I don't really measure beats in terms of like, okay, this is going to be a high, this is going to be a low, and it kind of just flows that way. I always try to throw another high or 2 in, so maybe not in the first book in a series, but I know with like the last Ryan Decker book, I asked my editor, I'm like, I have a couple more scenes, but I think the readers will be kind of tired at this point of all the action and stuff, and they're like, just put in as much as you want. It's it's the last book in the series, so you're not going to wear people out. But yeah, it just starts with a seed of an idea and kind of just ends up, and I'm going to turn this board, if it's okay, I'm going to turn my computer toward the board. So I'm starting to write Black Flag 6, which is long overdue.
Yeah, that was my next question for you. Right. And I don't believe you.
No one believes me, because I have actually gotten to this point before and completely changed it around. So yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so just a quick little move over here. So I have the whiteboard, and this has all the entities, and I'm kind of just trying to figure out, getting back into the that world, and figuring out just very broad angle what's going to happen. So just gets more and more detailed, and it changes like 10 times, during the whole thing. And
you use Post-it notes still?
I don't use those as much. I have the whiteboards now, so I kind of rely on those a little more. But you'll by the end of the process, there'll be tons of Post-it notes up there, but not like I used to do the cardboard trifolds, and I would do it. It's essentially the same thing. Yeah.
So for those of you who are relatively new to your books, and I'm sure you're going to get exposed to a lot of new readers because of the release of this, you did not start writing this type of book. You started with what you didn't even really know was called post-apocalyptic at the time, But
Right.
Jakarta Pandemic really was the launch of your writing career.
Yes.
And then you went to Black Flagged, which was more of this sort of techno thriller. What is the difference in writing those two series, both from a reader perspective and also from the way you approach the stories?
That's a good. I don't know. I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. No. Yeah. So when I wrote the Jakarta Pandemic, like you said, I had never heard the word prepper. Survivalist. Everyone heard of survivalists. I really just kind of designed. It was really designed as a suspense novel. Around a pandemic, and about a family just really closing themselves in. And this is a different kind of pandemic, way more deadly, and like literally, the country's going to come to a screeching halt, and things are going to get bad. And I just thought, what would you need to do to survive? So, I hadn't even looked at manuals. I came up these were ideas, and I didn't realize I was tapping into this post-apocalyptic kind of prepper-oriented genre. I didn't really realize that until the book, released. I had no expectations, and it just started selling. And mostly, I would say at that point, mostly in that community. It was a one-off book. I really hadn't thought of writing more. And I turned to really the genre I enjoy the most, which is, that kind of black ops, covert operations, conspiracy, political, espionage thrillers. And, what kind of created from the ground up something that I felt like was missing, and not knocking, the genre or any other authors. I just, I wanted to come up with a new concept, something I hadn't seen before and hadn't read. So that's where Black Flag came from. In terms of approaching them differently, I think the post-apocalyptic stuff in general is a lot more linear. I do find it easier to write, a little less research necessary to go into it. The conspiracy stuff, it just gets twisted and busy, and it takes, I find it takes a lot more, say mental energy on my part. The gears are definitely turning, and I'm staring at paper a lot longer. Like, how's this going to work? How's this going to fit together? Bringing 10 different organizations, 30 different characters, in 8 different geographic locations. How do you kind of puzzle this together and not leave readers just like, what did I just read? So I think that might be why post-apocalyptic writers, and I experienced this myself, can write those a little faster, a little bit. I don't think I write fast enough to really keep up in the genre anymore. But it's kind of by design. I feel very comfortable and happy writing in the genre area I'm writing in. Yep.
And do you find that a lot of readers make the jump with you between genres? And I know that the way that you write your post-apocalyptic stories, really, in a lot of ways, they're similar to techno thrillers, even if they're a little more linear. There still is this sort of military element to them. There is a thriller element. There's a lot of action.
Right. I agree. I think a lot of people did come over. It's there's plenty of post-apocalyptic stuff on the market to read. So I'm sure there are a lot of people I know that is all they read. They really love the genre, and they'll read anything in it. So I probably left some readers behind. But you're absolutely right. I think maybe not so much of going from the Jakarta Pandemic to the Black Flag might have been a big jump for my readership at that time. The Black Flag, I think that series built a new readership, and I think that's the readership I carried into the Alex Fletcher series. So when I revitalized the Jakarta Pandemic, those characters, there was a lot of demand to see more, and I thought, how am I going to do this? I got to throw another disaster at them. They just went through this life-altering pandemic, where there's a will, there's a way. So, but, there's a lot of these aspects. There's I kind of cut them from the original novel, and it's sort of a standalone piece that's at the end of the Jakarta Pandemic and leads into the core Alex Fletcher books. And it's techno thriller stuff. It totally is. There's scenes based in China on ships, that kind of stuff, almost military techno thriller. So yeah, there's a lot of that in those books. I don't think that was a big leap from going from the 4 final Alex Fletcher books into Black Flag or into Ryan Decker or any of the other series. I think that's the more of an easy transition because I think people who are reading those books, they're just going to get the more of the same.
So, and in this new series, this is sort of a double question. One, there's a black flag element here, as you finally, after years of promising,
Yeah.
get to Black Flag 6, and then there's coming Dawn, which is out later this year. More Black Flag crossover a little bit in that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, no, yeah, those characters play they play a key role in the book, really. What's left of them, and like, Black Flagged 5, and which is out. You see why their numbers were whittled down, and basically, if you I guess if you read Deep Sleep, or even the Ryan Decker, they make an appearance in the final Ryan Decker book. You'll figure out who survives book 6. So a little bit of a cheat there, because I do design it. I kind of like to think of these in the same bit of like kind of universe, and you see that in Deep Sleep. They're older, they're and they are in Ryan Decker. These characters that do reappear, they're not the spring chickens they were, so to speak, in the actual core Black Flag novels. But yeah, I enjoy bringing them. I love those characters, and I do miss them, and I really, really have wanted to write this 6th book for 3 or 4 years. It was a matter of finding the time. So I think I kind of kept trending, let's keep these characters alive in my head, and also maybe just to keep like the death threats to a minimum, and I don't want to have to move again, or leave the country. So yeah, Black Flag 6 is coming up.
You're in a bunker somewhere, right?
right. Undisclosed location where the angry Black Flagged readers cannot find me.
So when you're working on these stories, how many other ideas do you have in your head that you have written down on a whiteboard, a Post-it note, or in a computer file somewhere that you think, okay, this could be my next series or my next 8 books or something? Or how many ideas have never even materialized into work and you've just kind of kept them shelved?
Yeah, I would say there's a good 3 to 4. I have I have a folder in my desk, and it's it's like composed of just like legal pad, ripped out sheets. So anytime I do, an idea does come to mind, or something I'm looking at, like, oh, it's a cool article about drones, or about whatever it is. Yeah, I'll definitely take some notes and file it away. So yeah, I have about 3 or 4. They're not fleshed out at all, really. They're just real basic, but sometimes I go in there and I'll scribble some notes. I do keep a folder on my computer, like a bookmark folder, and I'll, it's like upcoming or future novels, and I'll put in any articles I read that I think that I want to come back to and see if there's something there. And so, yeah, and I don't, as far as ideas that don't, I think more of those came from the post-apocalyptic time, because I was always and the struggle, I was always trying to figure out, like, what can I write that's different? What can I write that's, new? And sometimes that's not the best thing to do in that genre. I think, the audience likes what they like. And, if you stray too far, it just might be too far. So I'm always, but you could come up with like a billion different scenarios, different locations. What I mean? I know this way better than I do.
No, hardly. To the degree that you want to discuss it, tell people a little bit about your personal life and what you do when you're not writing, writing books or posting to Facebook.
Well, now I don't do anything because with the pandemic going on, so things have changed fairly drastically. Now we like to travel, so that kind of fell by the wayside over the last couple of years. But I have a fairly regular routine. I get up, I wouldn't say that early. I live on the far east or western edge of Eastern Standard Time, like Indianapolis. I think I'm further west than you are. I'd have to look at a map, but so we have like what I call like the endless nights here at this time of the year, where the sun doesn't come up till 8:15. It's hard to motivate. Even in the summer, it's not like Maine. It would come up at 4 in the summer and maybe 7, I think, in the winter. So anyways, I'm kind of rambling. Yeah, I get up, I walk on the treadmill for about an hour, kind of just check emails, and that's kind of like just some thinking time. See what's been going on in the world. Dig through some of the folders. I usually have like kind of a light to-do list. I can't write on a treadmill. I know some people can. I thought I could in the past, but it just doesn't work out. So I kind of put all my admin time into that. And so that's kind of my workout. I do some other stuff during the day. But yeah, we, aside from walks, currently, there's not a lot going on at the Konkoly house for sure.
So I know you promised it 20 minutes and 30 seconds, which we actually are right now. You would mention Franklin Horton. And I asked Franklin about the process of being an author, whether you're independent, whether you're hybrid, whether meaning that you both work with traditional publishing companies and then you're also independent, or whether you're traditionally published. There's a lot of business that goes into this that's not about actually writing. How much time do you think you spend on the things that aren't actually putting words on the page as opposed to the actual creative process?
Well, first, let me say hi to Franklin, because we did promise that. So, and like I said, Franklin's origin story is like the quintessential indie success. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So, anyways, that's that. We'll leave it at that. So yeah, I in terms of business, I've tried to do less and less of that, and I by shifting from all self-published over to to an Amazon imprint, Thomas and Mercer, their publishing arm. It's taken. I don't do that. I don't do a lot for those books. And that is kind of a by design thing. I really wanted to, just spend less time on the business side of the house and more time on the writing. I mean, I think every writer wants to do that, but the reality is, it doesn't always work out that way. And even for my Thomas and Mercer books, I do spend a good amount of time on the business side of it. The business side being more just promotion, setting up advertisements, but they. I guess you put it this way, they spend the money on it. And they have a professional team that runs this whole thing. So I don't have to do as much. It's really just kind of like more interacting with readers. I say fans, I hate using that word, but interacting with readers. I get busy around launch times for them. It's a little intensive, but the self-published stuff, I have 3 series on a backlist, on backlist. And it takes time. It's hard to keep those relevant, keep those in front of readers, through Facebook advertising, Amazon advertising. There's like 25,000 different, platforms, all with varying levels of success and all requiring, how it is, a certain level of time. And it eats up time, but, it does work for a lot of people. I just prefer to spend less and less time and money on it, if to be completely honest. To be totally honest. I mean, I think we all feel that way. So I would say, honestly, if I were to spend 6 hours in front of the computer in a day, that would be kind of a normal, non-deadline rushed kind of day. Probably a good hour of that now would be dedicated to advertising, admin, and things, the business of writing. It used to be more. Honestly, I'd release a book and then I'd spend like the next month, catching up on stuff, redoing book descriptions, revamping ads, creating new graphics. The drill. It can really eat up a lot of your time and consume you, really.
Before we go, anything else that you want to add? I always end interviews with that question because sometimes the best answer comes from the question I didn't ask. No pressure.
Yeah, geez, that's a good one. Hopefully you have a few more questions lined up, because I think I'm going to disappoint you.
Is there anything you want readers to know about what's coming out next?
Well, it's I'm going to continue with there's going to be a book 2 of the Deep Sleep series, Devin Gray series, and as usual, it's always a struggle, and I always feel like I'm going to let readers down at some point. So the next book, how do you just keep making the books better. I mean, it's subjective, right? But I think Coming Dawn is hate to say better. I want to minimize Deep Sleep, but I definitely ratchet everything up in that one. So hang in there. It's Deep Sleep. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but it's definitely it's not a standalone novel. So that would be a good thing to point out. You just have a short wait, 8 months, like an eternity these days, right? Until the fall. And then that may be the end of the series. I've designed it so it could be, but there may be a third book. I definitely have a good way to revitalize, relaunch Devin Gray and his crew against a kind of another conspiracy. So yeah, we'll see.
So I will ask this question. You mentioned 8 months is a long time to wait. Traditionally, authors might come out with a book once a year, maybe even once every other year.
Right.
Do you find that readers, much like they like to binge watch television, want to binge read, and so their appetite for waiting has diminished significantly, so that 8 months now seems like an eternity? Not to be negative.
No, absolutely not. No, I think, and I also think, I mean, I look, there's two ways to look at it. I think, I hear from readers all the time who, find Black Flag, the first book, and they binge them all. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of that, because, when you find an author you like, and, there's 5 books in a series available, it's kind of like hitting the jackpot. It's tough. I think this was like, something that, self-publishing has changed, to some degree. I think it has definitely changed people's appetites in terms of, they want books faster, or would like to stumble on a nice backlist. I definitely could feel that. I think that's, I started to see that in the post-apocalyptic genre, where, like I said, I'm preaching to the choir here with you. You really have to release quite often and long, keep it going for, quite a long time to start really picking up steam. So, having a publisher behind, standing behind me, putting me in an amazing program like Amazon First Reads kind of takes that pressure off, gets the visibility that I would normally get by publishing 4 books a year, 3 to 4 books. I mean, I think the most I ever did was like 3 in a year. It may have felt like more, but that's about it. And I do about 2 now. Maybe I would say every 6 months I'm finishing a novel. So it's slowed down, not like, in half, but definitely different.
And if people want Deep Sleep and they're an Amazon Prime member, they can get it for free right now.
Right. And even if you're not a Prime member, you can get it for like $2. So it's it's a great program. I mean, it's you can see the results. I mean, the book's sitting in the top Kindle slot right now. And that's something I probably couldn't I'd not say probably, I could not accomplish on my own. I mean, that is the power of having a publisher, with a great program standing behind you. It takes a lot of the pressure off. I was about to say little. I'm like, that would be way underselling the benefit of it.
Well, good. Well, Steve, always great talking with you. Really appreciate you spending time talking about your books, and your latest one, Deep Sleep, available now on Amazon. You can always go to stevenkonkoly.com to learn more about his other series. I think I've read just about all of them at least once. I've had the pleasure of binging them myself. So Happy New Year to you. Hope it's a very successful year, and thanks for being with me.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely the same to you. Happy New Year.
All right. See you later.